Hello, listeners. This is the Labor Know Your Rights podcast. I'm your host, Dave. This podcast is brought to you by the National League of Justice and Security Professionals. Welcome, podcast listeners. Today we have Ron Mikell, the president of the National League of Justice and Security Professionals. Hello, Ron.
Hello, Dave. How you doing?
Great.
Yeah, glad to hear it. Can you hear me well enough?
Yep.
Okay. Well, listen. Let me spell out a little bit about what I do and what the National League of Justice and Security Professionals does.
Sounds good.
That's it. I've been doing union stuff for more than 20 years, both with guards and with police officers. And I started getting into this stuff about 20 years ago. Currently, I'm the head of the National League of Justice and Security Professionals, a 9B3 guard union that we started back in 2012. I've just been recently elected to second term in our convention, and I'll serve for 5 years unless lightning strikes me, or everybody says, get out of here, Ron. Either way, NLJSP is a democratic organization organized along democratic principles. As a 9B3 union, we are a pure guard union, and the only people that we admit to our membership are guards and professional security officers. If we took anybody else in, we wouldn't be able to go and raise the flag with the NLRB to get them to conduct an election. Like we're in the middle of another one right now. I've got emails to send out to all the people that we're trying to convince to vote yes for us in a union election to be held on March 15th here in the greater D.C. area. Now, most of the people that we represent are employees of a contract employer that has a government services contract, and these are governed under what's called the Service Contract Act. Now, a lot of these folks come in, when we start with them, they haven't had a raise in 3 or 4 or 5 years, and that's because as employees under the Service Contract Act, they can only get a raise if the service contract wage determination rate goes up, or if they have a union, they can negotiate a raise increase. I explain it like the old Chinese restaurant. You choose from column A or column B. Now, if you're in column A and you have no union, then you're dependent on whatever the wage determination is. And in some of these locations, especially when the economy's in the toilet, it hasn't gone up in years. So their raises, their pay hasn't gone up in years. The people that we represent, though, we negotiate every year for a pay increase. And there could be a difference of $5 or $6 or $7 between what wage determination is and what a CBA wage determination is. And that's what we do. We come up with a CBA wage determination. That's served on the government, and then that becomes the new pay rate that the guys get. And right now we've got contracts with right around 10 security contractors spread from D.C. to the Pacific Northwest. And each one of them is a little different. Each one of them requires a certain amount of negotiation. Some of them require a great deal more than others. And the most recent contract we just finished was with a company that's out of California, but they operate in the Maryland, D.C. area. So we put together a team of 3 members of the local, and myself and the treasurer took those 3 people to negotiations, and we had a couple of days worth of negotiations with the employer, and we got a nice little raise for those guys that went into effect March 1. Our membership is fairly diverse. We're about 300 or 400 people now as membership, and we have a 5-member board, and we're on the web. We have a pretty good web presence, and we track a toll-free number so that people that run across our web page can ring us up on the toll-free number, and then we can make our arrangements to represent them and set up the elections and do all those things. Like I said before, we're a 9B3 Guard Union. Now, we're not the only people that represent guards. We compete with some AFL-CIO affiliates that are what they call mixed guard unions. The real difference is they may have more money, they may have more time, but they can't represent the guards unless the company allows it. Only the pure guard union can take refuge with the National Labor Relations Board and force the employer to conduct an election, or rather the NLRB conducts the election. But that's a huge difference between what are called mixed guard unions and pure guard unions. Myself, I've been in the security police since I got out of the Navy in 1984. I was started with the Glenn County Police Department in Brunswick, Georgia, and later on I left the county PD. I was at the security police at the Federal Law Enforcement Training Center, and I helped bring in the union there, and I've been with the union at the police department. And then I moved to the West Coast, and I was with the union there. Then I moved back to the East Coast in the course of 20 years. And then about 5 years ago, we launched the National League of Justice and Security Professionals. I dealt with a number of unions over the years, and one of the things that I liked about the union is that you could stand up for the other people there, and one of the things I didn't like about them is that they seemed to be so much more concerned with collecting the money than they were representing people. That's the reason our motto is the member is first, and that's the way we play this game. We're competing in the National Capital Region with a couple of unions that honestly the people that run them are either on their way to prison or sitting in prison. There's only a few honest players in this whole game. We happen to be one of them. And I don't mind losing if I lose to people that are honest. But we continue to fight those that are less than honest. We do everything in the open. Our LM reports, our required annual reports, are on the web. We usually have a link on the website to those reports. And we file an annual IRS 990. And anytime we run into a member who demands to know how money is spent, our answer is to always reach for the books and show it to them right then. If we don't have them right then, we make a point of catching up with them to show them to them, because we don't have anything to hide. And like one fellow told me one time, I'm too fat, I don't look good in stripes. So we're not going to run off with anybody's money. We're going to account for it, and we're going to do our best to represent people when they're in trouble, and also when it's time to work out what the next round of pay increases is going to be. Well, I've finished talking. Dave, do you have any questions for me?
You've pretty much covered a lot of ground, but what unions do as far as representation in regards to things like disciplinary actions and stuff?
Sure. Yeah, the thing about representing people in disciplinary actions is that up until the point you have a collective bargaining agreement, all your representations has got to essentially run through the National Labor Relations Board. Once you have a CBA, then you're governed by what's in that document. When someone is in trouble and requires representation, the first and most important thing they have to do is ask for representation. The law, the case is called Weingarten. If somebody is about to be disciplined or believes that by answering questions they could be disciplined, then that's the point where they should ask for union representation. It's not like in Miranda where the officer has to tell you that you have representation. In Weingarten, you have to assert your right to Weingarten. And then once you've done that, we will either dispatch someone, or I will show up, or we'll represent you on the phone to be there as part of the package so that you don't find yourself in trouble when you can avoid it. And if somebody's guilty of something, we'll work hard to mitigate whatever is being proposed for them as a discipline. A lot of times people are up for a discipline, and it may just be a misunderstanding. And they get upset, the employer gets upset, but we don't have to get upset. We can sit there and hear the whole thing out and propose maybe one party or the other didn't quite understand what it was. The other side of it is that sometimes, and it happens a lot, people get in trouble and they deserve some sort of discipline for it. So we want to make sure that that discipline is consistent. You know, it's applied the same way to everybody, and that it's proportional. But even more than that, we want to make sure the guy's not guilty of whatever he's been accused of. And a few innocent people, not many, but a few innocent people. And dealing honestly with the employer makes it easier when you tell them, hey, this guy's innocent, to get something thrown out. And if this guy's guilty, he's not that guilty. And yeah, he's guilty, but he's really good. Those are my three favorite defenses. Anything else, Dave?
Nope, that sounds good. I'm going to summarize this to lay out solid foundations of what you were saying a president of a union or local does. First, a president ensures that the union is ran in a democratic and legal way. Is responsible to ensure that the members are represented in possible disciplinary actions if they request to be, that the disciplinary action is fair and consistent, to bargain in good faith for the members with the employer for a collective bargaining agreement. Also, and finally, to ensure that the union is accountable to its members financially and its every action. And to wrap this one up, I'd like to thank our sponsor, the National League of Justice and Security Professionals, where the members come first. Labor Know Your Rights can be found on Facebook at www.facebook.com/Labor Know Your Rights. For comments, questions, or suggestions for episodes, you can reach me, Dave, at laborknowyourrights@gmail.com. The National League of Justice and Security Professionals can be found at www.nljsp.us.